Hey, Greece and Rome people. Someone asked me a question in class at the end of the semester that stuck with me and occurred to me that it would be a good video to make. So let's get right into it. Which is harder to learn, Greek or Latin? Ancient Greek or Latin? Well, depends on what you mean by learn. Depends on what you mean by know a language. Greek has roughly 3 times as much vocabulary as Latin, and one day we'll get into the reasons if you want me to. That's more historical. So that means that Greek's harder, right? Well, the first year of Greek is harder than Latin. The second and third years of Latin are harder than Greek. What? How's that? Here's how. Because there are so many words in Greek, there are many more words to learn, and you couple that with the fact that there is about 3 times as much grammar in ancient Greek as in Latin as well, and you have a lot of things to learn in the first year. Latin, on the other hand, has many fewer words, and although the grammar is just about the 3rd or 4th hardest in the history of human language, so by no means simple, it is about 1/3 as hard as Greek grammar because there are just so many more forms and the syntax is so much more complicated in ancient Greek, for reasons that we'll get into in the future. So, what about Latin? How is Latin harder, 2nd, 3rd, and pretty much for the rest of your life than Greek once you've gotten past the first year? Well, there's a trade-off. In Latin, there are many fewer words to learn, but what does that mean? Think about it. If you really want to get into the guts of what something you're reading means, really understand what the words mean, when there are fewer words, ideas that you can use to communicate with, even though you can expand them and all that kind of stuff. Once you get past the first year of learning Latin, the emphasis becomes, okay, I know what this word means, because there's relatively few words in Latin, so you can learn them in the dictionary, what they mean, the lexicon. But what does it really mean? So when you look at a Greek lexicon, which is a fancy word for dictionary, kind of, there are differences, and that could be another video in the future. You notice that there are many, many, many more words than in Latin, but another thing you notice, if you look at the largest Greek lexicon and the largest Latin lexicon, you'll notice that there's a trade-off when it comes to a greater number of words in the ancient Greek lexicon and fewer words in Latin. But wait a minute, how can the lexica be the same length, more or less? Well, the trade-off is that in ancient Greek, there is greater specificity and less ambiguity when it comes to vocabulary items than in Latin, so that it takes a lot more space, a lot more print in a Latin lexicon to get across the various shades of meaning of a given word. So, for example, notoriously, the word race, R-E-S, meaning what in Latin? Well, it means race. That's a running joke. Everybody who's ever taken any language class, even culture class with me, knows that when I say some word in Latin or some word in Greek means, I give the word itself to get across the idea that there really is no accurate translation for a word. The word means what it does, and the best way to learn it is to learn the language, obviously. But short of that, the first meaning given for race usually is thing. Thanks a lot, right? In other words, what? Object? Not necessarily. Thing. And it could be an idea, it can be anything. So, for example, the res publica, the thing of the public thing. Okay, does it mean thing? More like a fair, maybe, or establishment, or, you see what I'm saying? So you can already see how it can mushroom out. Well, in Greek, with extremely great exceptions, such as logos, what does it mean? Oh boy, don't get me started. Or even mythos, myth. What does that mean? Does it mean word? Does it mean story, etc.? Well, it means a lot of things, and again, future video. In Latin in general, there are fewer words used, and each of those words carries a greater amount of semantic weight or connotative and denotative weight, depending on what word you're talking about and what context it occurs in. So if Greek is in vocabulary and grammar roughly 3 times as hard as Latin, the trade-off for Latin is that there are so many more meanings and shades of meaning to each of the words that you learn in Latin. So as you can imagine, that when you take upper division and graduate courses and move on in the rest of your life after school, and read the ancient Roman texts, you are going to need your lexicon to get a sense of, say, the 20 different meanings for race, or of any of a number of other words that require this kind of teasing out and getting a sense of what. So I had a professor, Alva Bennett, and I will never forget that in his classes, this upper division Latin courses, Roman literature courses, and we would read a text together and we would land on a given word, and he would take out the lexicon and thumb through it, get to the part of it, and then pretty much read the entry for that word in the lexicon. Not the whole thing, but to give us a sense of all of the shades of meaning. Now, he already knew and understood the different shades of meaning there were, but he provided a model for us for how to tease out meaning from ostensibly simple words, but they aren't. The deeper you go into them, you see that they mean so many different things. Whereas in Greek, when you're talking about most words, there is pretty much, as far as you can say that this is possible, a one-to-one correspondence between the signum and the referent. And so that's the trade-off. Let me know if you have any questions about what I said and you want me to expand on any aspects of this. And have a great one. Goodbye.